Bob Natifu is my name. I'm an assistant commissioner in the Ministry of Water and Environment, the Climate Change Department, which coordinates national climate response in country. We, as the Ministry of Water and Environment, we coordinate national climate response. So you might ask, what does that mean? It simply means, how do we get everybody together to contribute their fair share into contributing to both adaptation and mitigation action in country. So climate change from our side is a challenge of managing risks. Risks for people, risks for ecosystems, risks for infrastructure, and risks for freshwater resources. And any attempt to do anything to contribute to that is what we call climate resilience. So, and we see agroecology as part and parcel of that entire concept of managing these risks that are being forced on us with climate change. But also, if you look at everything else that we deal with, from myself to you as an individual to every household, we are exact candid examples of how climate change is impacting us, be it with too much rainfall, too little rainfall, and none at all. And all that comes with extremes. And if agroecology is a science that deals with finding solutions in line with nature, then it's part and parcel of the solution. Part and parcel of the solution to address climate change impacts. So we have principles of agroecology, 13 principles, so to speak. So how do we make sure that we have seed that is going to work within soil health that is facing challenges? How do you ensure that you have soil fertility, or the health of the soil is important to address livelihood challenges that people face on a daily? So we see agroecology playing a central part in addressing climate change impacts, because where there's too much rainfall or too little rainfall or none at all, and it comes with impacts, then the answer is agroecology, because then you're going to use those concepts of agroecology to address those impacts that people face with. Agroecology is something that is overly misunderstood across board. But as Uganda, we develop policy frameworks. You might have heard of the Nationally Determined Contributions, NDCs, or you might have heard of the National Adaptation Plans, the NAPs, which is at the center of this training that we are attending here. But you will find there's not so much embedded, mainstreamed when it comes to agroecology. Why? Precisely because the concept is not very clearly understood, and we seem to be talking in different directions. Whilst we are doing everything possible to come up with set targets in terms of NDCs, looking at different sectors, agriculture, energy, and so on and so forth, we've not taken so much emphasis and time to blend in the principles of agroecology into those policy frameworks that we develop. The opportunities that we have, NDCs are developed every after 5 years. So we first developed our NDC 2015, 2020, 2020, 2025, and 2025, 2030. But because of the ambition that has been set at global level to say, look, we must develop these frameworks every year. So there's an opportunity for us to work with AFSA and other stakeholders to see how we can use 2024, 2025 to integrate agroecology within the NDCs and also within the NAPs, because these are the frameworks that we use ultimately, one, to mobilize finances to address climate change impacts, but also to ensure every stakeholder plays their part once it's reflected in national policy. So there are key entry points that we have, and I think the whole idea is, how do we strengthen this relationship and partnership with entities like AFSA to ensure that they don't miss out on the timing when we are reviewing these policies, so that agroecology becomes part and parcel of the policy frameworks that we are setting with. Another opportunity that there is at global level, we engage in climate negotiations. So climate negotiations is where policy is set at global level before it's cascaded down at national level. So within those negotiations, there are different tracks where negotiations can take due consideration of agroecology. You've rightly talked about adaptation as one of the responses, but also mitigation. So to what extent have we mainstreamed agroecology within the adaptation response at global level? Now that is also not yet done, but it presents a very good opportunity. And as we head into Baku this November, December, the outcome of any engagements that we have with Dr. Million and his team can form part and parcel of some part of the packages that we take into international conferences to say, look, these are areas of interest that Uganda and any other parties are looking out for, that should form a basis for framing international policy, and then we can work backwards to see how then that can be reflected effectively well in the national policies that we've set out to achieve. At the center of Baku is going to be finance, unfortunately, not agriculture per se, but agriculture is part of the drivers that I think as part of the component. So you'll hear repeatedly so much talk about the new quantified goal on finance, the NCQG. So the new quantified climate finance goal is about how do we mobilize climate finance to address all the solutions that have been put on the table, including agroecology. So that's the starting key point. If you may recall, 2009, I don't know where, maybe you're still in school, the world came up with this $100 billion for African countries or developing countries to access in response to climate action. How much of that has been met? We can't put a straight finger to that. But that was supposed to run until 2020. So right now what we're discussing is that then how do we make sure we move from that 100 billion that was promised so many years to ensure that there's enough finances to deal with the policy frameworks that countries have put in place with the NDCs and NAPs, because these policies are on table. And when you look at Uganda's ambition within the NDCs, we require about $30 billion to implement climate action. Now that's only for Uganda. So that amount of financing that is required from Uganda contributes to the kind of financing goal that we want to see. So Kenya has a different goal altogether. Maybe it could be about 50 billion or so, because I mean it's a bigger economy than us, but that compounded together amounts to trillions of dollars. How that is going to come about, I think it's still yet to be decided in Baku. But I think the key highlight here is already the policies and the implementation frameworks that have been put forward kind of point an indication how much money is required. And if agroecology is part and parcel of the solutions that we put forward to champion as part of the implementation process, then once we unlock the finances, then all the other initiatives that we are looking out in agroecology will be easy to deal with, because once that financing goal is achieved, then we'll ensure that there's financing available within the Green Climate Fund or within the Adaptation Fund that cohorts within the agroecology fraternity can use to access financing to implement agroecology initiatives. We've practiced agroecology for years. It's just a theme that kind of tends to be confusing at global level, but if you date back so many years, the traditional farmers know what agroecology is. So for me, I think as we talk about climate change and climate response, and with the impacts that we are faced with, we can no longer talk about climate response without meaningfully integrating and absorbing agroecology into what we do today, and if we are to save tomorrow's climate today.